Welcome to Tips, the Townsend Institute podcast series, a show produced by the Townsend Institute at Concordia University, Irvine. This podcast shares stories of leadership, coaching, and counseling experiences that have shaped the lives and careers of our guests, who then provide tips aimed toward helping listeners grow in both their personal and professional lives. I'm Dr. John Townsend, psychologist, organizational consultant, and author of over 30 books, including the New York Times best-selling Boundaries series. I'm also the founder of the Townsend Institute, and I'm excited to introduce your podcast hosts, Dr. Ashlie Andrew and Dr. Gilbert Fugit.
Welcome back, everyone. We hope your new year is off to a great start. A new year often brings new opportunities, new resolutions, and this year it will bring America a new, albeit returning, president. With inauguration upon us later this month, we are starting a 3-part presidential series on the Tips podcast. And while President-elect Trump wasn't able to meet with us at this time, we have 3 presidents we've called upon that are a little closer to home.
That's right, Ashlie. Our first of the 3 interviews is with Concordia University Irvine president Michael Thomas, who, as of this month, is celebrating his 5th anniversary with CUI. Although his academic interests include history and the classics, his approach to leadership and student engagement is anything but old. Listen in as President Thomas recounts his first 5 years as president. Let's get started.
All right, everyone, welcome back. We are in a packed studio here today. I'm joined alongside, obviously, my co-host Gilbert is here, but we are also here with Dr. John Townsend and President of Concordia University Irvine, Dr. Michael Thomas. Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Hello. We're really happy to be here.
Glad to be here.
It's a little bit of a crowded table, one we're not used to as much, but I like it, and I'm excited about what we're going to get into today.
But it's nice. We still all have our personal space.
We do.
I feel like it's a good thing.
We do.
Well, you might, Gilbert. I'm a little crowded over here.
The president crowded back in here, so yeah.
Well, there's this thing called boundaries, Dr. Thomas, we can talk to you about. And
I did hear.
You heard about that, John?
Thought I had, yeah.
Well, Dr. Thomas, again, we're so excited to have you here today. You, again, are president here at Concordia Irvine, but talk to our listeners a little bit about your journey to get to this point in your life.
Well, I won't bore you with a bunch of details other than I think I'll start with this, and that is probably my best journey to this presidency is to start with this fact, and that is I never wanted to be an administrator at all. Never had a dream to be a university president. I was very happy being a professor. But I served at Concordia University in Portland. Some of you know that, for many, many years, 16 years. So I was on the faculty there, theology appointed, also in the history department. And so I was very, very happy teaching. But I also at times would wade into running different academic committees. And so ran the Academic Affairs Committee, Faculty Welfare Policy Committee. Mainly that had to do with the fact that my wife told me your salary's too low. And so if you don't get your salary up, you're going to find a new calling in life. So I went into the provost's office and I said, I'd love to start a salary task force. And so I did that. Ad hoc committee, worked on salaries, got the salaries moved up for assistant, associate, and full professors. Just so happened to benefit me greatly, and
Imagine
so my wife allowed me to stay. And so that was my first kind of step into administration. And then later I became the director of the honors program, and that probably of everything prepared me most for this role. And the reason for that is I kind of ran my own little college, 100 honors students. I recruited, helped package financial aid, recruited faculty from among the faculty, did evaluations of the faculty, taught in the program, traveled with the students overseas. And so that was a really amazing experience because that allowed me to touch every aspect of the university. And so, as you know, when you wade into things, you try new things, you find out, wow, I do have some skills in this area. And that allowed me to kind of, while teaching full-time, bolster my administrative chops. And then eventually I became the Dean of Arts and Sciences, and I learned a lot more about managing faculty, both as a faculty member, but also serving as Dean. That was a really great experience. But again, I never had an interest in being a university president. But when I got nominated for this position, because in the Concordia system you have to be nominated, then you can apply. So I applied, and I kept walking through open doors that kept opening. And then I found myself eventually here interviewing in person. And actually, I'll tell this really short story. And that is when the day that the regents called me to tell me that I had been elected president, all day long, I had, thought to myself, there's no way they're going to elect me, because there was a very, very, very talented colleague who's still here who was in the other finalist position. And I thought for sure they would select him. And when they called me, I had told myself all day, there's no way they're going to select me. So when the regent called, the board chair called and said, we've selected you to be the president of Concordia University, Irvine, I heard, we did not select you to be the president of Concordia University, Irvine. So I said in response, well, I'm sorry to hear that.
And there was an awkward silence on the other side.
So he repeated himself, and I stammered. And then the best part of all, he then announced to me that, do you know that you're on speakerphone with all the regents? So after, a minute of recomposing myself, I then said, well, thank you for the vote of confidence. And then anyway, that's the long story of how I became the president here at the university.
And you reassured them that you were accepting them.
Yeah, it took me a little while to get around to that, but yeah, it was pretty embarrassing.
I remember when you first took over, and I remember meeting with you to say welcome, and we're looking forward to meeting, and it was right in the middle of COVID. You came when the world was upside down. Talk about that experience of walking in and hello.
Well, actually, that is exactly right. But I had 2 months before COVID hit, and I don't know if you know, John Townsend was the second day I was in the office. John had already made an appointment with me, so I didn't know anything about this university other than on paper. And so John walks into my office, and we're talking about the Townsend Institute. And he's like, and, I want to know what your thoughts are on how you support the Townsend Institute going forward. I'm like, absolutely willing to support the Townsend Institute. Absolutely, whatever that is, and whoever you are.
Yeah, I'm all for it. Yeah.
And meanwhile, I was still trying to find your lay of the land.
Yeah.
Like, where's the restroom? Where do I park?
There were boxes. I mean, he was just fresh in his boxes all over, and the guy's running everything, but he's just gotten here.
Did you help him unpack,
Yeah,
John?
that's what we did. We spent a lot of time.
Oh, yeah.
Decorating.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of unpacking boxes that day with Mr. Townsend. Yes. No, that was like my second or third day on campus, and then, of course, we've gotten to know each other quite well over the last few years. It's been a real joy. So, but yeah, speaking of COVID, so I had 2 normal months, and then so I started on January 6th, 2020. March 17th, 2020, COVID shut down the university. So it was a whirlwind that first year and a half.
Well, at the Townsend Institute, we are so happy to be part of Concordia, Irvine here. And it's our home. We love this partnership. We love being a part of all this. What has it been like, our engagement? What's it been like for you working with the Townsend Institute and seeing it grow after the second day when we were helping you unpack boxes and things?
Yeah, and you're with a lot of schools too. So, a multiplicity of things and us. And so, yeah, how did you juggle all that? What was it like?
Well, one of the first things we did is after I met John and we were working through how are we going to organize the university going forward. COVID really kind of flattened the field in some ways, but also we had a lot of challenges during that time. But the one thing I wanted to signal to John, that the Townsend Institute was such an important aspect, and to the faculty, frankly, and the staff of Townsend, wanted to really signal that it was a school unto itself. And at the time, it was not its own independent academic unit. So we reorganized the university, and it became our 6th academic school. And I think that has gone a long way to elevate Townsend as its own entity. And of course, the faculty and staff pour into the students. It's such a wonderful experience being with all the faculty and staff, and then getting to know John, of course, again. And so really proud of the fact that Townsend pushes our mission completely throughout the United States and beyond, throughout the world, right? Because it would seem to me that the Townsend Institute, many other academic programs do this as well, but the Townsend Institute really lives on that edge of our theology, our mission, our vision, our values, but Townsend lives on the edge of that practicality. How do you put that into action to change and transform people's lives? So when we talk about forming wise, honorable, and cultivated citizens, Townsend's doing that in the trenches. And I think that's the real power of the Townsend Institute.
Yeah, and we're so aligned on that. Michael and I have had many discussions about the mission and about that, and we're kind of always like, we're simpatico there. We're going the same direction. It's just been wonderful.
It's been great.
Well, when we talk about your leadership, again, stepping into this role as you approach your 5-year anniversary with the university, which is pretty
Crazy.
great.
He's got his office fixed up now.
Oh, it is now. It is now. Oh, you've
Recently,
been in there, changing it up a little bit. That's good. What are a couple
It's
of
the
things?
Townsend books that are on the particular shelf. I come in and there's more books there.
So are autographed?
No, but I'm waiting.
Oh, we can arrange that.
Stop.
We can arrange that. What are a couple aspects of leadership that you consider to be really paramount to the practice of leadership, whether it's in Christian higher education or outside of it?
Well, it's actually really interesting you asked that, Ashlie, because I think every leader brings different kind of packages of skill sets, right? And so one of the things that any leader has to know is they have to be confident enough in themselves and have awareness of themselves to know where their skill sets are, but also where all their weaknesses are, and to live as a leader authentically, right? You have to be authentic to who you are. I haven't read very many leadership books in my life. I've read a few when I was applying for the job. I really hadn't read none before applying for this job, but I thought I should probably read at least one or two before I come here, before I interview. Part of the reason for that is, and it actually has helped me a little bit to glean some aspects from leadership books, but it's really important that the reason I was always skeptical is I had met leaders in the past who had read a leadership book and then tried to wholesale adopt that personality and try to put into practice every chapter in that book. And it would always come across as so inauthentic. And it would eventually kind of, taper out, and that person would then move on to the next book and then change personalities yet again. The worst example of how you can lead. So I've matured in my appreciation of leadership books now and think to myself, okay, I'll read this. That really pertains to me. I can take that lesson and really apply it to myself authentically. Those other two chapters, I'm just not that kind of a leader. So in terms of my own 2 or 3 things that I would lift up, one is, at least for me, transparency. I think I hope many people at the university would say that I'm really transparent, right? I probably am too transparent. I'm told by some of my other fellow leaders on campus that I share too much.
Probably legal counsel a couple times.
Well, that may or not be.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Allegedly. There you go.
I'm not allowed to confirm nor deny. But so I will, as you know, right, in faculty meetings, I'll sometimes share really positive financial data, for example, or sometimes some negative challenges, because I just think we're all adults. We all have committed here, and we're all will pour in to solve problems.
And we need reality.
And we need reality, right? And so for me, transparency, and with that comes integrity. As much as I can, right? I mean, there's some confidential things I can't share, of course, but as much as I can share, I will err on the side of sharing, because I think it creates buy-in and it creates a team, right? But there are times where I try to gather a lot of data, but eventually sometimes I'm left with making a hard decision. I've had to make a few since coming here. COVID was one of those periods, of course. Had to make a lot of decisions, hard decisions. If you recall, my 5th month, we had to cut $5 million from the budget because COVID we didn't know what was coming.
And there wasn't a lot of fat on the bone in the first place.
That's right. So there were some really hard decisions, because when a leader like me makes those decisions, it doesn't just impact that employee, that faculty staff member, but It impacts their families, their housing situation. They may have to move. That may disrupt the extended family, church family. And so those decisions weigh on a leader, right? So, but you sometimes have to make those calls. And so because of that, a place like a university, lots of constituents, right? Faculty and staff, students, families, donors, alumni, business community. What'd you say?
Neighbors,
yeah. And so there's so many constituents, right? It's not like a normal business where you would have shareholders. There's so many constituents. And because people have been formed and shaped, their lives have been shaped here because it's been their family, people are really bought in, which is a wonderful thing, but also it creates a lot of buy-in, a lot of ownership, and a lot of opinions, shall we say. So that, I guess that would be the third takeaway, and that is a leader has to have thick skin. Sometimes you just have to make the decision and know that some people are not going to be happy. But if I'm transparent, I have integrity, hopefully at least I'll get a little space, buy a little goodwill, so that when tough decisions are made, maybe I'll get the benefit of the doubt periodically. But yeah, but let me end with this so it's really positive, because I tend to be a very positive person. And that is, I have never had a better calling in my entire life than this position. I love what I do. Love what I do. I never have a bad day. I may have a bad hour, but I never have a bad day. So, and it usually has to do with legal counsel.
Yeah, allegedly.
Yeah. Allegedly. Yes.
You know, when you were speaking of Ashley's question, I was starting to think about how what we do. So a lot of our listening families, leaders, and people interested in leadership, and you can kind of divide all the skills into two categories. And one is the task skills, strategy, vision, execution, this sort of thing, and the other is the people skills and managing those. And just watching over the last 5 years, some people are really strong on one and then the other. Like some people are really strong at the task skills, but awful people skills. And you just kind of, you hate them and you just avoid them, right? And then you got the people with the great relational skills, and they're fun to be with, but they never get anything done, right? And you have a wonderful, wonderful mix of those two. We've been, appreciative of that. So tell us what that's like for you as a guy who really does both ends well.
I would say lowest common denominator on both ends. And that way, thanks, John. It's really nice of you to compliment me like that, but I don't see myself that way. I have a lot to learn on both sides. In fact, I think I tend to be in the weeds probably too much for a leader, but that's how I'm wired.
You dig down.
Yeah. I'm a perfectionist, and I have very high standards for myself and therefore for others. And I think some people find it difficult to work with me in partnership because I can be somewhat demanding. And so that's a negative, and I realize that about myself. I can't sometimes help myself and get in the weeds. But yeah, it has to do with execution. I would say if I err on one side or the other regarding that versus vision, for example, I'm much more a name the problem, work the problem kind of guy. I can cast a vision. It's not my strength, but I can cast a vision. But what's my strength is like, let's work the problem. In terms of the relational aspects, I just was born this way. My mom told the story about when I was a little kid. I was 3, and she lost track of me. And this tells you how old I am, right? In a Woolworths in Kansas. She lost track of me, and maybe I was 2 or 3, something like that. And my mom can kind of panic periodically. So she's a Swede who is always freaking out about all kinds of things. But anyway, she lost track of me, and she was frantically looking for me. And apparently my grandmother was looking, and they're both like 4'11", so they couldn't see over the clothing racks anyway. So they're working around the store like hobbits, and they
first Hobbit comment in a year. We've never had a Hobbit comment on the show.
First on the podcast. Yep.
Mom, I love you. It's endearing that you. But she found me, and I was holding court with like 8 different ladies who I was entertaining by talking to them. So I've always been relational from the very get-go. And I didn't want to leave. I was having a joy telling them stories about my childhood, whatever I was talking to them about. And my mom said she had to drag me away, but.
Talking about your childhood
At
when
2
you're
and 3.
2 or 3, that history would be profound.
We have the whole podcast on that one, too. That'd be great. Well, you've been in higher ed for a while, right? Maybe even since
all my life,
2 or 3, right? Yeah. I mean, you've been there doing it for a while, and you've gone through COVID. You've seen a lot of things. What do you think are some current trends in higher education that have caught your attention, and why?
So a generic one, of course, is what we call affectionately the demographic cliff in the United States. So every university, especially on the undergraduate side, is struggling with enrollment because during the 2008 financial crisis, people didn't have children. And so we're in this process of we're dealing with that lack of birth rate. And so we have that situation. And then we have the issue across the country where people now are questioning the value of higher education. And we've put this on ourselves. We've inflicted this on ourselves in higher ed, and that is we've so confused the transformative process of higher ed with the credentialing, which is really important, especially in the grad space. Of course, it's about credentials. But what we do so well here at Concordia University Irvine is we form the whole person, right? We educate their mind. Every university educates the mind, but we go further, right? We educate the body, that is not just physically, but the community, the residential campus of the students, the undergrad experience I'm talking about. And then, of course, for all students, grad and undergrad alike, we form the heart and the soul, right? And how I define that is heart is learning to love neighbor, soul is learning to love God. And so when we do that really well, the college experience, especially undergrad, residential, but then grad too, is truly transformative. And while we never want to take away the practicality of a degree leads to career outcomes, all right, and jobs, et cetera, and that's so important, but we have so overbalanced that, especially on the undergrad side, that now if people have other pathways, economy's strong, people have lots of job options, they may choose that the university experience isn't valuable. I would say that it's extremely valuable, especially now, where we more and more are segmenting in society, where we don't live with people who are different from us. We don't associate with people who are different from us economically, racially, religiously. And it's actually really interesting. In our last Concordia magazine, we talked about what's the power of a Christian residential experience. And one of the things about that is that it forces people to mingle. And so it's one of the last places in our society where people are forced to live with other people. But they do it here in a Christian environment at Concordia with the safety net of our Christian values. So it's so important to mix people so that our democracy can thrive. So that's one of the issues, and that is the demographic cliff, but also the idea that people are not valuing higher education. The challenge at Concordia Irvine is more poignant, and that is the cost of housing. Getting faculty and staff, hiring the best faculty and staff. If they're remote faculty, it's a little bit easier. But if we need those faculty to be in the residential campus, for example, on the undergrad side of the house, very different from Townsend, but nonetheless, that cost of housing in Orange County, in Irvine, California, for faculty and staff, that to me is the biggest challenge Concordia University Irvine faces. We're working on some solutions, but they're not here yet.
Absolutely. Well, it's so nice to hear you talk about that transformative experience. And I think that's probably one reason why our Townsend Institute has been so successful here too, is we do that to an extent with our graduate students, right? That competence piece.
I was thinking about the 3 C's. When he said holistic and described, it's our 3 C's.
It's our 3 C's, right? It's the competence. They know they're going to get that additional skills and, the so-called book knowledge at times, but then that character growth that comes from, and the connection and the relationship building. And it's so important to the whole experience. That's for sure. I also like how you talked about the faith integration, the soul, the relationship with God. Now you, of course, Lutheran Christian, but also a theologian in that, right? So talk a little bit about how your faith just impacts what you do day in and day out.
Yeah, sure. Ashlie, thank you for that opportunity to answer this question. Yeah, it's actually quite fascinating. I am a theologian, right? I'm not ordained, but I do have a PhD in the history of early Christianity and early Judaism. So, and I've taught in that field for a long, long time. At Concordia University of Portland, I taught an introduction to New Testament, introduction to Old Testament.
It sounds like you started actually when you were 2 or 3, probably.
You're very complimentary. Yes. But the really fascinating thing, I loved teaching those general education classes, the religion classes for undergraduates. And the reason I love doing that is that I had the chance to share the gospel, right? And so many of our students who came to that school, like some students who come to Concordia Irvine, they're not Christian, right? They haven't grown up in the Christian faith. And so I always felt that as a professor, I had the ability to take really complex theological jargon and boil it down into simplicity. I'll give you one example. So in the Christian church, we use phrases like grace, right? But I always try to translate that for students. So I said, whenever you see the word grace, think gift, right?
Oh, gosh, that's great.
And whenever you see the word sin, think selfishness, right? So, and that kind of idea of taking theological jargon and simplifying it has always been, I think, my skill set as a professor, right? Not the deepest theologian by just using commonsensical words, but I think it helps a lot. I haven't had the chance here to teach as much as I want to at some point. Hopefully at some point when I'm
We
out
might be able to help you out with that.
when I'm out of the weeds at some point, I'll be able to teach maybe an evening class. I'm looking forward to that at some point. But I do have the opportunity to often lead chapel, and that's always a really great experience for me as well. But ultimately, how do I live my Christian faith as the president of the university? I try to put into really simple terms the practice that Jesus asked us to do, and that is to love God and love neighbor. And I try to emulate that by attending chapel, attending Bible studies, etc., trying to lead by example, loving God. And then it goes back to the transparency and integrity about trying to love other people as I would want to be loved, right? Or lead other people the way I would want to be led. And so it's just that basic. It's so basic, but so complicated, right, to do it well. And then always being willing to admit when I've fallen short and I need that grace, that gift of God that's undeserved, right? So that's how I try to do it, but I fail every day at it, right? So,
Well, I can tell you just from our perspective, Michael, we look at your servant leadership because you're always trying to consider how do you help every school in this whole big complicated organization that you run and a way to serve them and make them better. Everybody always feels like you're on their side, and there's lots of sides. So that part's very, very visible in your faith.
well, I appreciate that. Periodically, people ask me, well, what's the best thing about being president? I say, because a lot of people think as president, you're a leader, you're out front, which of course I am. But I often joke that I like to refer to myself as the chief servant because I do see the leadership pyramid completely inverted. That is that the president and the cabinet, we're here to support the deans, the academic deans and other program managers around the university. And they in turn are here to support the faculty and support the staff, who in turn support the students and their families. So if our leadership pyramid is inverted, then in terms of servant leadership, I'm the chief servant. And I I fail, but I try to lead in that way.
One of the things I think that this podcast, as you look at archives of the value of it, is that Michael's given us the picture of what's under the hood in higher academia. It's a different animal than a corporation or a family business or an entrepreneurial thing or a church because there are so many parts. I would love for our listeners who are interested in leadership and organizations to go back to that early part where he said, it's not like you just got the stakeholders. You've got all these different demographics that have a voice, and he ends up herding H-E-R-D, not H-U-R-T. He's herding cats all the time, and so it's
sheep. Herding sheep.
Well, it's more cats because sheep are more compliant than cats. Cats aren't compliant. He's got all. I've seen him do it.
Cats with a water gun, right?
Yeah, exactly. and so I guess what I'm saying is if you're interested in a calling, I can't imagine one better than higher education, what he's pulled off and what you've pulled off in the last 5 years, Michael. But it's complicated, it's interesting, but realize that it puts out a great product. But under the hood's a lot going on.
Yeah, so we're as of the fiscal year 25 budget that was just approved by the regents, we're a $93 million a year operation. We have 350 full-time faculty and staff, about another 600 or so part-time faculty and staff. So we have about 1,000 employees between full-time and part-time. We educate more than 4,000 students annually throughout the United States and the world. And really interesting, I had been in higher ed most of my life, Gilbert, most of my life. But it only dawned on me when I got here and I was the president during COVID. And the state of California helped in this way, helped us focus our mind because there were all these regulations for different industries. But it dawned on us one day when we were trying to figure out how are we going to reopen this campus. It dawned on us, wait a minute, we are running a small city here. So think about this, right? So of course we have classrooms, we're running a school, but we run a restaurant, the cafeteria, we run a coffee shop, we run a church, we run a performance theater, we run a performance hall for music, right? We run a medical clinic, a mental health clinic. We run a post office. We have a police station.
Gym and athletics.
Exactly. We have full athletic complex.
Housing.
Yeah, we run a hotel. Thank you, Gilbert. Oh, yeah, that one.
Yeah.
And so what was really fascinating is because of the different regulations, right? I won't give away all our secrets, but there were certain things that were allowed. You can run a church, but you couldn't run, say, a music performance. But if you just prayed, then is it a music performance or is it worship? There you go. And so through that period, we learned that, oh, yeah, that's right. We're running a small city here. And so the complexity of that. And then not only that, but we're running it for many students across the United States and the world, right? And we're also running a travel agency because we send students out to study abroad constantly. And so that complexity, way beyond a single industry, we're running, in many ways, the metaphor of being a mayor and a city council.
I was just about to say that. You can
Is
add that
actually
to
more
your
apt.
LinkedIn
Yes.
profile
There you go.
now.
Yeah.
And if you think about this, it's an oven. It's a very complicated oven because what comes out of the oven is a fully formed person ready to serve Christ, be trained, be in community. But look what it takes to be that. And I think Concordia University Irvine is one of the best universities in the country. Watching how they do it and being able to see it in vivo so much. It's the right oven.
As we think about this, right, there's so many aspects to Concordia Irvine, as we were just talking about, and so many dynamics to your job and as role as president and how you've been doing this. As we end each episode, we ask for a tip, and there's been so many things we've discussed today. What do you think's a tip you'd like everyone to walk away with saying, man, if they remember one thing, this is what I want them to think about today?
Yeah, so the number one tip is regardless of what leadership role, however small, however large, the one tip I would give is be authentic. There's nothing more important than that. So if you're an introvert, right, be an excellent introvert. If you're an extrovert, be an excellent extrovert. If you're a in the weeds, nuts and bolts kind of leader, do that really well. If you're a visionary, do that, lean into that, and then surround yourself with all the people who make up for your weaknesses. And Doris Kearns Goodwin's book, Team of Rivals, is such an important book for a leadership, building a leadership team.
With Abraham Lincoln, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
Abraham Lincoln building a cabinet of people who were his rivals. And so I'm not saying that our cabinet is a team of rivals in the sense that we are at animosity. We work extremely well as a leadership team together. But there are times where we raise our voices to each other and we advocate for our areas. And it's so important that every one of us in that room knows that our weaknesses are covered by other people's strengths and our strengths cover other people's weaknesses. And ultimately, we're a Christian university, and every leader, every faculty member, every full-time staff member is a practicing Christian at this university. We're open to the world. We invite any student, regardless of their faith commitment, grad or undergrad, to come and study here, to be formed by us. If they're qualified and they're willing to lean into that mission, they are welcome here. But the really great thing about having faculty and staff who are committed to Jesus Christ and the mission of this Christian university is that when we screw up, we can say, I have screwed up, and I've hurt you, I've wronged you, please forgive me. And we can pronounce forgiveness in the name of Jesus Christ to each other. And that's the power of being a leader at this university, because ultimately being a leader at this university is being a servant who models ourselves, right, after the chief servant, Jesus Christ.
And when you forgive each other, giving and receiving that gift of grace that you mentioned.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it is a gift.
Thank you for your time today, President Thomas. This has been a real blast and a blessing, I think, for our listeners and our students. So,
and happy anniversary on 5 years here,
Yes.
and continued prayers for many more.
Thanks, Ashlie. Thanks, Gilbert. Dr. Townsend, thank you very much. This has been a real joy for me as well. Thank you.
If you enjoy the Townsend Institute podcast series, head to our website at cui.edu/Townsend to find out more about the certificates, bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees offered through Concordia University, Irvine. With programs in mental health counseling, executive coaching and consulting, and organizational leadership, we have a variety of faith-based programs dedicated to helping you fulfill your academic and professional goals, all the while furthering your competence, character, and connection. Again, that's cui.edu/Townsend.